Hey everybody, I'm Jack Hammer. I just wanted to say thanks for joining. Tonight what I wanted to do, it's a Friday night. It's been a little bit of a slow week this week with the bye week, but I wanted to come on and just talk a little bit about how the 49ers are going to need to overcome some history if they're going to make the playoffs, as well as talk about some of the things that have been going on with this team here so far through the first 5 weeks of the 2021 season that have really helped slow them down and get them off to the rough start that they've been off to so far this season. As you know, if you look at this, if the 49ers are going to reach the playoffs this year, they're going to need to do something that the organization has not been able to accomplish since 1972, and that's overcome a 2-3 start to the season. 1972 was the last time they did that, and they would go on to lose to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC divisional round, 30-28. That was the same day as the Immaculate Reception occurred in Pittsburgh when the Steelers defeated the Raiders, by the way. Since that season way back in 1972, the worst start, which has resulted in a playoff berth for the 49ers, came in 1985. That season, the 49ers were the defending Super Bowl champions. They started the season off 3-2, so not 2-3 like they are now, but they were 3-2. And then they had losses: the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions, that would knock them down to 3-4 after 7 weeks. So they were a game under 500 after week 7. The 49ers would then go on to win the last 7 of the last 9 contests of that season to finish out 10-6 before losing 17-3 in the wild card game to the New York Giants. So that's a big hill to climb when you think about that. 1985, a lot of you probably weren't even born at that point, and some of you definitely in 1972 weren't. And heading into the season, it's kind of interesting because the expectations were that it was going to be the defense that might struggle early on. The thought was, the change from Robert Saleh to D'Amico Ryans as a defensive coordinator, with Ryans taking on that role. It's been the first time in his career that he's had that kind of responsibility. That was going to take him a little bit of time to get up to speed. But in reality, the defensive unit has somewhat been a strength in the early going, especially the last 2 weeks. And when you look through the season, other than the second half in Detroit and maybe a little bit in the first half and at the end of the game against Green Bay, they've played really well. And so, surprisingly, the issues that have really, plagued the 49ers so far this year have come on the offensive side. And, while San Francisco has a new offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniels, it was expected that the presence of Kyle Shanahan was going to help cover up those growing pains. And through the first 5 weeks of the season, we haven't seen that happen yet. Over the last 3 weeks in particular, the 49ers' offense has been able to only put up 4.7 points per game in the first half on the board. And overall, they're at 10.8, which is their second lowest total. 10.4, which is their second lowest total since Kyle Shanahan came to San Francisco back in 2017. That 2017 season was the only one that was worse as far as first half points. And, while most of the focus this year has been on the level of the play at the quarterback position, the issues on this offense really start with the offensive line. And going into this offseason, the 49ers knew they needed to do something to shore up the center and right guard positions in particular. It's not like they sat on their hands. They tried to take actions that were going to work out, but so far they just haven't. The first move San Francisco made was signing veteran center Alex Mack. Mack, one of the oldest members of the 49ers this year, and his age has really shown. He just regularly struggles to generate any kind of movement at the line of scrimmage in the run game, especially when he's asked to block with a man that's lined up over him. If there's not somebody on top of him, he's going at an angle, he usually can move that man. But if it's a head up, man on man blocking, he's really going to struggle to be able to do that. And then sometimes you see it come from him just not being able to get up to the second level in space. And those are just a couple of the things that they've dealt with so far. At 35 years old, like I said, I already mentioned the Mac piece, but one of the other things with Mac is throughout training camp, the veteran also, he had difficulty in pass protection as well, especially when the defensive player would attack at edge. And so what I mean by that is think of him attacking like the outside, like to a shoulder, not so much a bull rush, but more making him have to turn. And he really struggled with that throughout training camp, and it's something that we've seen carry over to the early part of the season during passing situations. The other move that they made was back in the draft, and they tried to find an upgrade at right guard. They thought they found one when they selected Aaron Banks in the second round. But the problem there is that Banks had played left guard during his time at Notre Dame, and he really has struggled with that transition from the left side over to the right, especially early in camp. And then he injured his shoulder in the first preseason game. So between struggling already, then having to miss time due to the injury, he just fell behind the 8 ball. And through the first 5 weeks of the season, Banks has been a healthy scratch for each game. So, the miss on Banks, that forces the 49ers to go with Daniel Brunskill. Brunskill is the guy who played well in 2019 when he was called upon as a backup to come in and play. But he's really, his play, we've seen his play fall off ever since that. He struggled at times last year, and a lot of that we thought was because of the move to center. But we're finding now that he's been cemented at right guard that it's just Daniel Brunskill, unfortunately. And much like Mac, we're seeing him, being unable to generate movement in the run game, and also be, proven to be a liability in pass protection. So it really starts up at the front of the offensive line, and that's really been the issue there. Let's just see real quick if we got any questions over in the comments. I see Jesse's in that team may have been 3-4 to make the playoffs, but Jack, this team was a Super Bowl champion in 2019. This team is a run-it-back squad. They can't be stopped. Oh wait, oh yeah, it's exactly right. This is a different situation. They also don't have Joe Montana at quarterback. Even in '85, I'd have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure Montana didn't even start all those games in '85. But that's 100% correct. This team is not those teams. Hey, Jacob, happy Friday to you as well. Just thought I'd jump on real quick, and I do have one more point that I want to make before I move on. We're in the Last Second Sports, waiting for your call and show. Jack rejected us this week. Well, there are a couple of things on that one, Runa. You know the deal with Jesse's show and what happened over there, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to do that this week and have to limit the people that were coming on. That's something that might show up again this coming up week. The off week was a really busy week for me too, outside of my ability to come on YouTube and writing and those kind of things. So it was the bye week was the time for the 49ers to kind of figure out their stuff, as we're going to get to next, and it was a time for me to figure that out as well. And Harold, hello everyone. Hey, hello to you too as well. And then he also says, I love the 80s, 49ers brought a lot of joy. Yeah, that's the era that I grew up with, was the 80s. I was really young, but I was old enough to remember those seasons. 80 was my first time at a game. I was in 6 years old or somewhere about that, but you know what I mean. All right. And then Jesse got back. He says, I got you. I have a way to do it and protect us. We'll talk. Definitely, let's do it, because I like getting in there. And Runa's one of the guys that I miss chatting with during those call-in shows, because he'd always call in every week, and that's usually the only time we could connect. So outside of the offensive line, really quick, the other area of concern for San Francisco has been the lack of opportunities for Brandon Aiyuk. That's been all the talk this week. He led the team in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns as a rookie in 2020. And yet this year, Aiyuk just seems to kind of be an afterthought. Through 5 weeks, Aiyuk has seen his targets drop from 8 per game in 2020, his rookie season, down to only 3. So it's not even half. He's gone from 8 all the way down to 3. His numbers are showing. And for an offense that is struggling to find playmakers and the lack of opportunities for a player that's really one of the most dynamic guys on their roster, it's just puzzling. And so, John Lynch didn't do a whole lot of favors with some of the things that he said when he was on the radio earlier this week, basically saying that Aiyuk needs to show a little bit more with the body of work that he's capable of bringing. That's a paraphrase of what he said. But the other thing that he said at the end of that statement was, and this was regarding Aiyuk, is that he's got the makings of not just a starting football player in the league, but a very good one at a real critical position. So to be able to complement Deebo Samuel, especially with George Kittle out for right now, we need that explosiveness in our offense, and that starts this week, meaning this bye week. Every day, it's important we figure that out. And he's 100% right, because if the 49ers offense is going to take the next step to where they can actually start scoring points and keep up with these teams that they're playing, they're going to need that offense to figure it out so that they can improve. And even if they do, based on what we talked about at the beginning, it might be too late. that 2-3 start. I understand there's an extra week this season, so they're going to get an extra game, 17th week. I know that their schedule's going to be getting a little bit lighter over the second half of the season, but once again, they're still going to be playing they're still going to be playing against the Seahawks. They're still having it up in Seattle. They have another game against Arizona, who just beat them, and they have 2 games against Los Angeles, who is very good. Not to mention some of the other games that they have. And right now, the 49ers at 2-3 are out of the playoff picture. Somebody asked me today if I see 7 teams better than the 49ers, and quite frankly, with the way that the 49ers have been playing through the first 5 weeks, I think there's 7 teams that are better than them, maybe 8. They're just not consistent enough, and the only teams that the 49ers have beaten right now are the Detroit Lions, who are not good, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who aren't very good either. 2 teams with really poor quarterback play, and it really helped them out there. So we'll see what happens. And then Luke says the 49ers can reach the playoffs if they establish the run with running backs, create turnovers on defense, have no new significant injuries, and more chunk pass plays with Brandon Aiyuk. So I agree with you on all those counts. The run game is huge, especially with the running backs. That's why when I looked at that game on Sunday as that game was going on, I could not figure out for the life of me what Kyle Shanahan was trying to accomplish with running Trey Lance as often as he did, especially going up against a team that everybody knew going in was one of the worst in the league. Quite frankly, they were the 3rd worst against the run, and so they give the running backs the ball 10 times. They give a fullback 1 carry, and they give the wide receiver another carry. The wide receiver actually scores a touchdown on his touch, but overall they ran the ball better with the running backs and the quarterback. So it was just a really odd way that they went about it. And then the turnovers on defense, that's definitely a piece. They were able to get one last week, so they were able to match Arizona in terms of turnovers. Each team had 1, but again, the offense wasn't able to do anything with that, and that just needs to turn around. And then Maruna says, Jack, who do we miss most at this point, Mostert or Verrett? I think right now, the way that this team is constructed, they miss Mostert more than they miss Verrett. The defense, we've seen the defense be able to step up these last 2 weeks against, all the talk early in the season was, where the 49ers quarterbacks rank among the NFC West, and a lot of people, myself included, were saying that the 49ers probably have the 4th best quarterback in the division. But at the same time, we've seen those 2 that were ahead of them, meaning Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, struggle to really put up a lot of points and put the game away. So I'm going to say it's going to be Mostert. And the other reason with Mostert is he has that explosiveness in the run game that they don't have right now. I like what they have in Elijah Mitchell. I like what they have in Trey Sermon. Those are 2 good running backs, but Mostert could take it to the house. Basically, look at a lot of times, if you see maybe a 5-yard run by Mitchell or Sermon, either one of those 2, and those probably are going to be 8, 9, 10-yard runs with Mostert because of his explosiveness, and at times his ability just to run away from people. So I think they're really missing Raheem Mostert more than they're missing Jason Verrett right now. Pinor asked, do you feel that people are protecting Trey too much when judging his game? I do. I think that when you look at that game, I'll stick with what I've said all along from the time the game was done till I watched the film and so on. Is I thought he played fine. He's a rookie making his first start, and he looked like a rookie making his first start. He had some really good plays. He had some really bummer plays. But that's to be expected with a guy that's a rookie, and I don't have a problem coming out and saying that this is a bad play, that's a bad play. He completed half of his passes, just slightly over half his passes. A couple of those were because he threw them away. There was a couple of holding penalties that were the result of him holding onto the ball. There was a sack that was a result of him holding on the ball. So yeah, it was a good first performance. It was a fine first performance for a rookie. The issues that we saw in the game, or that I saw in the game, are very similar to the issues that I saw from him in training camp. I'm pretty sure that in the discussions that I've had with you guys as to why he wasn't playing, it had to do with the inconsistency of the offense when he was in there during training camp, and how it was going to be it kind of just seemed like they were able to move the ball, but it was in fits and starts. They'd make a good play, and then they'd have some bad plays, and it was up and down. And that's what we saw in the game. We saw really what we saw from him on the field on Sunday was what we had seen on the field during training camp, and then really during the preseason as well. We saw it. But again, it was a decent first effort, and I think we're going to see him continue to grow. Whether he's playing or not, we'll see what they decide to do with there. And Luke asked, does Shanahan really put players in the doghouse, or is it a typical sophomore slump issue with Aiyuk? I think Shanahan definitely puts players in the doghouse, or if that's what you want, if that's the word you want to use. He definitely has some times where he does stuff with that. When it comes to Aiyuk, I think some of it is the way that they're utilizing him. They're running him on a lot, almost on a lot, like he's the clear out guy a lot of times. So I think that's why another part of the reason why we see his numbers drop so much. But they need to figure that out, because there's no way that he can. Right now I think Deebo Samuel is averaging 10 or 11 targets a game. Some of those targets need to go to Aiyuk. Some of those screens and that kind of stuff needs to go to Aiyuk. We've seen Deebo Samuel drop 2 screens now already that I could just right off the top of my head. There was the one early in the game in Philadelphia where Garoppolo hits him right between the 1 and the 9, and he drops it. And then there was the one on Sunday that hits him on the back hip, but it should still be caught. And I just think that there's plays like that could go to Aiyuk as well, because he's not the runner after the catch quite like Deebo Samuel is, but at the same time, you got to get the ball in his hands and get him rolling. I think the more you put him out there, the better. Again, I feel like people are hating you too much when we need people like you to judge him on film. We need to see his progress. That's why I say continue to show us his flaws. I believe he'll fix them. And I thank you for saying that. And I think he definitely has the potential to fix them, right? I mean, I'm not going to throw him out. I'm not going to say he doesn't. He's in a tough spot right now because he's trying to learn NFL for the first time. And I know that he just spent all this time working on his throwing motion over the last year and stuff like that. But when you get thrown into the game and the live bullets start flying, you don't have the time to really, maybe process or think quite as much as you normally would, as maybe you do when you're throwing the ball during the off season. Just with your coach or what have you. So I think what we're going to see is he's hopefully what we see from him is he goes into this off season. He's going to be much more comfortable in the offense coming back next year, and we see maybe some strides from his, with regards to his consistency with his release points and drawbacks and things like that are plaguing him a little bit this year, or causing him some issues. So absolutely has some flaws, and I think we're going to probably see the biggest growth of those next year, because it's really hard to do in the middle of the season like they're in right now. There's just so much going on. Thanks, Harold, for that. And, but I just wanted to come on. I mean, I think, I missed talking to everybody this week. Wasn't able to get on quite as much. And just wanted to throw that out there. I had that article come out today, so I wanted to kind of bring that up and put that on YouTube for everybody to hear that and interact with you folks a little bit. But the 49ers, like I said, they're 2-3. They've only made the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs since 1972 when they've been in this situation. So let's see if they can overcome history. Let's see if that offense that has been woefully bad can figure out a way to start putting points on the board here in the second half of the season. Hey, and also it's Friday night. It's almost 6:30. I've got to get over to some Friday night lights myself, and I just wanted to say, come on and chat with you for a minute and talk at you, I guess it is. And I appreciate those of you that joined here, and anybody that's watching this later on. Thank you as well. If you could hit the like button, subscribe, comment, all those kind of things, that'd be fantastic. And I'll take a couple more real quick before I go. Real quick, he says, why do you think Kyle used Benjamin to stretch the field instead of using Sherfield? That's a good question, Pioneer. I don't know. I really don't. I don't understand the reason for bringing up Benjamin, period, and sitting, and even sitting Jennings. That doesn't make sense to me. Jennings is a guy who's been working to get there. And meanwhile, Benjamin wasn't around last year, and he's working his way back now. So I don't necessarily agree with that move. I really wish it would have been, joining Jennings or go ahead and let Sherfield go. The only thing I can think of on the Benjamin deal is that they were thinking of using him as on special teams as a punt returner or a kickoff returner if they were having some issues. That's the only thing I could think there. So that's it for tonight. Like I said, thank you all for joining, and you guys all have a great weekend. And I might be back tomorrow, and we'll see how it's going there. But I might be back tomorrow afternoon after I get done with my Pop Warner game. All right. So you too, Pioneer, you go out, you have an average night as well. And I'm going to go out and see and hope that, that my kids' football team can win their game tonight because they have a big rivalry game, and looking forward to seeing that go on. So have a great night, everybody, and I will be back with you soon. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.